All right. Well, it's good to see everybody. And I wanted to kind of assess where we are before we dive in. If you remember, or for those of you who weren't here last week, but I think everybody was except Rita Claire, we missed you last week, right? Um, well, you remember at the end of chapter 3, we get that summary of what happens that foreshadows, but now starting in 4, that story will unfold, which we got that summary of. So Tobit is still blind right now, even though it ended with he had been healed. Uh, so he's still blind. And the more that we're into this, I'm now asking myself again, what is the genre of Tobit? It's a romance, it's a fairy tale, it's a quest. It's the Jewish experience in diaspora. It's got wisdom literature. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of resonance with Genesis and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and of course that was Abraham was 2,000 years before Moses. He was living much like the Jews in the diaspora, I assume, in a foreign land. And yet the Deuteronomic theology, the idea from Deuteronomy of the covenant relationship with Yahweh, with the Lord, is dependent. It works both ways. It's dependent on the response to the commandments or not. And there's blessings and there's curses based on obedience to that or not. So it's a covenant relationship, and that's real clear. But now the question, and I'm not going to ask for answers yet, but a question I want us to think about is what is the emerging worldview of this remarkable story? Uh, by worldview, I mean the writer, those who uh, brought together the tales and wove them together into this story that we now have in the uh, that intertestamental period, what we might call, from the Christian perspective, deuterocanonical. And what is what is the author or that community that developed this amazing story? What was their worldview? Their view of living in this Greco-Roman Hellenistic world that they were in. Um, the Second Temple period. Okay. Any thoughts or questions before we move in? Okay. Rita Claire, since we didn't get to hear your voice last week, would you mind reading that first section, please?
Sure. That same day, Tobit remembered the money that he had left in trust with Gabriel at Rages in Medea, and he said to himself, now that I have asked for death, why do I not call my son Tobias and explain to him about this money before I die? Then he called his son Tobias, and when he came to him, he said, give me a proper burial. Honor your mother and do not abandon her in the days of her life. Do whatever pleases her and do nothing that makes her unhappy. Remember her, my son, because she faced many dangers for you while you were in her womb. And when she dies, bury her beside me in the same grave.
Now, Rita Claire, can I ask you to read that that next paragraph as well because it's part of his speech, and that'll give us more to talk about. But I also want to remind ourselves that remember he and Sarah had both prayed to die. Those prayers in chapter 3. So he's expecting to die. And so now he's bequeath this is his will and testament. So I'm sorry, keep going for that next paragraph.
Be mindful of the Lord in your days, my son, and refuse to sin or to transgress his commandments. Do what is right all the days of your life, and do not walk in the ways of wrongdoing. For those who act honestly will prosper in all their activities. To all those who practice righteousness, give give alms according to your circumstances, my son, and do not turn your face away from anyone who is poor. Then the face of God will not be turned away from you. Act according to what you have, my son. If you have much, give alms from it. If you have little, give alms in accordance with what you have. Do not be afraid, my son, to give alms. You will be laying up a good treasure for yourself against the day of need. For almsgiving delivers from death and keeps you from going into the darkness. Indeed, almsgiving for all who practice it is an excellent offering in the presence of the Most High.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
Anything grab you, Rita Claire, or were you too busy reading to think about it?
Oh, well, I'm just thinking of every day in my mail, I get tons of requests for donations. Uh, so how much do you give? How much should you be expected to give?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Nice.
most of those that I get are political, and I just say no.
Yeah, but for those that are not, it seems like it's constant. And once you do give, then you're really bombarded. And I can't help but feel a little guilty when I throw them away and I don't give. So it's it's a dilemma. Well, how does everyone else feel about that?
Oh, I just wanted to say something. Um, it does say here, um, uh, act according to what you have. So if you have
Okay.
much, give alms from it. If you have little, give alms in accordance with what you have. So I
Hmm.
think he's leaving it up to his discretion. He's not saying give to anything and everything that comes along. He is he is allowing you to have some discretion here.
Mhm.
And
So,
Harold, that reminds me of in one of the Gospels, or maybe all three of them, they're in the temple and everybody's making a big show of almsgiving, the rich
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
powerful. And then there was the widow's mite, who came and gave just all she could give. And then Jesus says she gave more than all the others combined. So there's something about giving uh, from the heart as well,
mhm.
the attitude of the heart, perhaps. Don?
Yeah, I think there's a certain power in almsgiving, whatever the amount, but it suggests here that it's a protective force in the reading.
Wow. I love that. I mean, that's provocative. I love this. Do not, this is verse 7. Uh, and Harold just mentioned, give alms according to your circumstances, my son, and do not turn your face away from anyone who is poor. Then the face of God will not be turned away from you. That's a stunning statement, I think. Don, do you want to, what are the implications of what you just said? Can you expand?
Um, I think it's first of all, it should. I don't know. For me, it's a regular practice. I realize I can't give to everything, As a side note, I know someone who, by the way, is in a dementia facility right now, who has collected requests of her for money that have enclosed a dollar or a quarter or a nickel and promised back fourfold and what have you. And she has like about $600 over a period of time that she has collected from these begging letters that have enclosed money. Which I mean, maybe the reverse of the protection is shown in that statement. I don't know, but but yeah, I have difficulty with the number, but I have to wall myself off in a sense, um, because I don't think it's good self-care to give everything that you might or are being asked for. But I think certain chosen uh, areas of life that you can help are meaningful to both the giver and the one that's gifted.
Yeah, alms giving is so pronounced here. It's just it's at the heart of the ethic of that and the burial of the dead, but it's so profound. And yes, as protection, uh, because we don't want God's face to turn away from us, but that's just a dramatic way of focusing on in a world that's full of greed and wants to get as much as it can. This is, I mean, it's just a stunning text for me. And so let's go and read the Deuteronomy and the Ben Sirah and just see what the reflection is on almsgiving before we go much further with what it means and what is, as Rita Claire asks, the obligation or the how do you discern um, who and how to give?
Steve,
So,
I wanted just to say that the entire paragraph is really, to me, an ethical instruction that shows the bound or the bonds between a father and a son. Um, and there is a lot of ethical wisdom in it too.
yes. Um, yeah, I mean, what a last word. And remember, Anna, his wife, in the last chapter, didn't she kind of mock him? You give so much and you're a pious man, but a lot of good that did you. You're blind now. There was that slight accusation and yet here he doubles down and says, this is who we are. This is how we roll, which is just such a sacramental or um what's the word? It's a the accent in for the Jewish people in diaspora who are already, living away from home. They're in foreign lands for this to be so highlighted draws uh it's just a beautiful image in the world of that way of thinking versus more worldly approaches. Okay, so Deuteronomy. Don, since you're talking, can you read Deuteronomy 15?
Yes, give readily and have no regrets when you do so, for in return, the eternal, your God, will bless you in all your efforts and in all your undertakings. For there will never cease to be needy ones in your land, which is why I command you, open your hand to the poor and the needy kindred in your land.
There's that protection, that Deuteronomic approach. You do this, and in return, you'll be blessed. Um, let's go to Ben Sirach. Anybody game for reading that? Megan, could you do that, please?
Nevertheless, be patient with someone in humble circumstances, and do not keep him waiting for your alms. Help the poor for the commandment's sake, and in their need do not send them away empty-handed. Lose your silver for the sake of a brother or a friend, and do not let it rust under a stone and be lost. Lay up your treasure according to the commandments of the Most High, and it will profit you more than gold. Store up almsgiving in your treasury, and it will rescue you from every disaster. Better than a stout shield and sturdy spear, it will fight for you against the enemy.
Yeah. I mean, in the spirit of our interfaith gathering, I can't help but think of Jesus's radical focus on just this. It's like um, it embodies Jesus's message, which is blessed are the poor, and you know he continues to reinforce the alms giving in the Jewish law, but he transcends it and radicalizes it and says uh, it's not just the 10% or whatever's required. It's give everything, and then he contrasts that with the rich over and over again. So it's one of those things we conveniently forget or ignore, and we focus on other pieces of Jesus's teaching. But this was at the heart of his teaching, is the in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 25. uh, when did we clothe you when you were in prison? When did we give you something when you were hungry? And then he says, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And so I think Jesus embodies this Jewish law in his own teaching in a way that resonates. Let's go to Mishnah Avot, and
Steve,
then we will reflect on.
can I
Megan
say
has a question.
Oh,
one
Megan,
thing?
sorry.
Yeah, with what I just read, it is keeping they're in exile, so it's keeping the Jewish law. But in the end, he shifts to this will help you if you're in trouble with the enemy, more than a sword or a spear. If you've got money, you can, I mean, to me, there's a store up almsgiving in your treasury, for it will rescue you in every disaster. So if you've got money, you could buy your way out of being killed or something like that. So there's that little twist at the end with the almsgiving that you can use it for other things too. So
I hadn't thought
that
of
sort of
that,
stuck out to
Megan.
me when I
Yeah,
read it.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think in my reading, I just saw that as giving in that way. Yes, you're storing up alms in your treasury, but that's for giving to the poor. And then in terms of the moral law, God values that more than strong horses and spears. I see it more as the contrast, but it's undeniable, your interpretation.
It will fight for you against the enemy. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Anybody else have a thought about any of that?
Steve, just, it doesn't necessarily have to be funds or money or currency. I mean, there are stations around Suffield that are referred to as blessing boxes, where people fill with non-perishable food. And those boxes are empty and have to be refilled every so often. I often think to myself, there's probably just students in Suffield Academy that go looking for macaroni and cheese But the fact is, you can make sandwiches for the poor, and you can give to a blessing box, and you can give warm clothing, or clothing that doesn't fit anymore. So there are so many areas of taking care of the other that does not necessarily involve money.
Yeah, including your presence and attentiveness to the other, a genuine
Yeah.
open-heartedness. Okay, let's look at the types of charity givers. Let's see how they further break this down. Richard, you up for it? Oh, yeah, okay,
There
I'm
are
sorry.
four
Go ahead.
types of charity givers. He who wishes to give, but that others should not give. His eye is evil to that which belongs to others. He who wishes that others should give, but that he himself should not give. His eye is evil toward that which is his own. He who desires that he himself should give, and that others should give. He is a pious man. He who desires that he himself should not give, and that others too should not give, he is a wicked man.
What do you make of that?
Well, there's three bad people and one good person. That seems to be consistent with the population. Although maybe it's like there's one good person and four bad ones. I don't know.
Yeah, but it gets to the attitude of the heart, right?
Right,
Or a
right.
way of thinking about your giving. Is it manipulation? Is it to get something in return? Um,
Although I would quibble with the semantics because it says there are four types of charity givers, but one of them doesn't give at all. So how is that one type of charity giver?
well, again, that's hard. That's undeniably there. I don't know. Technically not.
Well, we have to look
On
at
the
the
mission
English
are
grammar.
very difficult to understand.
Hmm?
I,
Say
I
that again,
find
Don.
I find the Mishnah to be very difficult to understand.
This particular text or in general?
This one is bad, but the rest of the sayings, they seem to set up opposites and paradoxes that I can't get. I mean, it's not plain words to me.
Well, it's very, I think, intentionally dialogical, right? It sets up paradox and challenges, and
Yeah, but that's hard to
on
keep.
one hand, on this hand.
Yeah, it's just hard to keep in focus as you're reading through it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At some level, it's almost like mystical literature, or those koans,
Yeah,
sometimes.
or there's a code someplace that you can't find.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Rita Claire, have we answered all your questions about giving and almsgiving? A lot of needs in the world, right? I mean, geez, it's overwhelming.
I was thinking there are more ways of giving, like it was brought out. Uh, you can give of yourself in many ways, of helping someone maybe to get to somewhere where they can't uh, drive themselves, or helping out with something that the person like figuring out, helping them with their bill paying. I mean, there's so many other different ways of giving other than money.
What I like about that, Rita Claire, is it goes back to it's a way of thinking, which in the end for me is humility. It's just recognizing that um, we've got this one life, and at the heart of our moral energy should be recognition of and service to the other in need. and
Mhm. Mhm.
including in how you define need and when that becomes enabling, and there's all that stuff. But it's a way of thinking, uh, and the humility that it takes to keep our eyes open to the needs of the world, as opposed to just locking ourselves up in our own solipsistic, silos, or gathering a collective of like-minded in the silo and shutting out the others. That's an arrogance that is, I don't know, it's not good for the world.
I, I would like to ask if anybody feels that they are drawn to give um, for money or help in any particular circumstance, as opposed to the general influx of requests that come through the mail or that pop up in our lives. Does anyone feel a call to give in a particular circumstance, or is it just, oh, I got a letter here, I'll send this to St. Jude's, I'll send $5 to St. Jude's, kind of thing. I I think that there might be a stronger call to alert you to what you should have to give. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I guess not.
Yeah.
We're just
I'm
contemplating.
just the opposite, Don. I have a feeling of not a calling of not giving, especially to the ones who mass produce their
Yeah.
requests, such as St. Jude's, which, by the way, has a $5 billion endowment.
Really.
Yeah, it's one of the yeah, they're it is. Don't get me going on them. Um,
He's the patron saint of hopeless cases too.
well, yeah, that may be. I mean, it's yeah, the ones that advertise on TV that want $19 a month.
Oh,
Very,
mhm.
I'm very suspect about. I mean, you have to be careful about people who charities that ask for money and really investigate what their money goes to, how much they spend on administration. Personally, my giving, I like to give locally,
Mhm.
to not to like the animal shelter, well, the ones I'm familiar with that I've dealt with, or the local like food bank, that kind of thing. But
Yeah, me too. I like to give locally, and
you know,
every now and then I'll get a GoFundMe request, and if it's someone I know and it looks like that would give some energy, it's no big deal to
well, I would think of
support.
that as local because you know the person. That's what I meant by
Mhm.
That's
something
what
I'm
I mean,
familiar.
relationally.
Something
That's
I'm
I don't
familiar with.
really give. I'll give to my church, but I really focus on the local needs that are always around me and do the best I can. But I just, all that other stuff's just junk mail or spam. I don't even give
I
it a
think
thought.
charity begins at home.
Hmm.
So I think that's what we're saying, right? To those people that we know and those organizations that are familiar to us in our around our surroundings. And I mean that personally also. I think giving when someone is not asking is important also. Um, just recognizing that someone has a particular need without them ever even mentioning or asking for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most powerful, that anonymous gift,
Mhm.
right? That,
Yes.
that that comes as a gift, a real gift. I think a gift by definition is something that comes from outside that you then pass on.
Mhm.
And it's not a gift unless you pass it on. So it's just that generous spirit. And I think we can argue that in Tobit, he's talking about almsgiving for his people, his kin. Um, and it doesn't necessarily oppose giving to folks outside of his kin group, but I think that's his focus. Let's finish up, make so we know we're covering this chapter, and then we can just open it up again. So let's see. Let's go to Beware, verse 12. Harold, you good for that?
Yeah. Beware, my son, of every kind of sexual immorality. First of all, marry a woman from among the descendants of your ancestors. Do not marry a foreign woman who is not of your father's tribe, for we are the descendants of prophets and true-born sons of prophets. The first prophet was Abraham, then Isaac, and Jacob, our ancestors of old. Remember, my son, that these all took wives from among their kindred. They were blessed in their children, and their posterity will inherit the land. So now, my son, love your kindred, and in your heart do not be so arrogant against the daughters of the members of your people as to refuse to take one of them as a wife. For in arrogance there is ruin and great confusion, and in idleness there is loss and dire poverty, because idleness is the mother of famine.
Nice. Any thoughts?
Well, this is he's getting in touch with his inner xenophobia.
You crack me up.
I kind of liked it up until now.
Yeah. Well, it's an endogamous culture in the diaspora, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
have to,
they want I needed, I guess, to preserve their culture overseas or in other lands so that it wouldn't die out,
yeah,
get assimilated and die out. So
that's right. I mean, I think that's at the heart of diaspora in Judaism, but because it's always under threat of dilution. And then, of course, in the Pentateuch, it's in those early texts about not intermarrying and so forth. But tell me more, Harold, about your feelings about this. Can you say a little bit more about your revulsion at this idea?
well, it's yeah, I do feel kind of a revulsion towards it, but I'm looking at it from, from the year 2020, early 21st century. And I can kind of see I can kind of see that what their point of view was. I may not necessarily agree with it, but I don't want to necessarily impose 21st century standards on somebody from 2,200 years ago, maybe 2,100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Let me see if I can get this right. But it seems like it was okay to have sexual relations of a male with a servant. It did not seem okay um, to have sexual relations um, if you were married and someone was hitting on your wife. That was like punishable by a lynching or whatever, or a stoning. And that was something that grew out of that culture. You look at Abraham with Hagar. Uh, that wasn't a marriage. If it was a marriage, then um, what we read about Abraham marrying of his own type and kind is not correct here. But I think the standards for slaves and handmaidens or servants, the sexual standards of that were a little looser in terms of that time period.
Well, what I heard, and I think, there is that, but I think in all cultures there's this, even in the ancient pre-modern culture, there's progressive ideas,
Yeah.
especially in the prophetic traditions. And then there's the traditions. You know, in my own family, I've got two brothers who are just endogamous. It's the tradition. They're xenophobic, you know, basically to use Harold's word. And my other brother and I are more progressive, even though those labels can be problematic, but it just means we enjoy otherness and difference, and we're not stuck and new experiences in the world rather than having to do what our grandparents did and having to have those same values, which tend to be xenophobic, you know, which is only a fear of the other, right? It's as opposed to love, xenophilia, love of the other. It's fear or hate or distrust of the other. So that's kind of woven into all history, it seems. What do you think, Harold? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it reminds me of a lot of people from other backgrounds. I've known, I mean, I'm in my 70s now. So, and I've known people of my generation and older who come from a Catholic background, whose parents told them when they were kids, don't date anybody who's not Catholic, you know. And even going further, you know, some kids of whose background was Irish Catholic, and their parents, you know, if they went out with somebody who was Italian Catholic, their parents would have a tantrum. Now that's probably of an older generation, and it's not so much anymore. But yeah, it goes on. Yeah, I think
And in my
Harold,
family, it's
it's
don't marry someone from a different zip code.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Harold, that happened to me when I first started to date. I was going out with an Irish girl, and her parents wouldn't let me in the house. I was to meet her outside, and she was given the caveat of not letting this get serious, you know. So, but it's hurtful. I mean, and you look today. My grandson is dating an interracial girl, uh, which would be unheard of in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
And I see a lot of this as I hear a lot from our class about on what are we doing? The no, skip my mind. Anyway, it's a
Robert?
our proverbs. Yeah, there's a lot of proverbs in here. Teach your son, be nice to your mother. It's an attempt to in the diaspora not assimilate. And I don't know if it's xenophobic as much as it's don't assimilate or we'll lose our Judaism, we'll lose our
I,
cohesiveness, which is really true. It's amazing that with all these diasporas and everything else, Judaism has survived.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I see it more as that than back in those days. But it's still, I agree, alive today.
Yeah. That identity, the Jewish identity, whether it's religious or secular, it's astonishing over so many centuries and millennia.
But
Uh,
you have to ask yourself, why did that happen? It happened because of doing that same thing that we're reading about, is keeping together and having an objective sense of purity about the line.
Yes, and also coming up with cultural markers like clothing and a ritual that's not biblical. That's it's rabbinic, and I think a lot of that was to keep Jews separate so that the culture would survive. And I think it was a successful strategy, which may be dying out because if you look at other cultures, like my former partner who is Japanese. They have none of, I mean, maybe they have some Japanese dishes in the house and have some food that's a little different. But other than that, I mean, their religion's all gone from what they brought over. None of them are Buddhists anymore. That's all, and they have no history, no language. And I think I mean, I don't know any, indigenous Americans, but a lot of their culture too. It's just been their differences have been erased away, and when that's gone, their differences are gone. And I think that's what's unique about Judaism in the history of mankind. If you look at cultures, I mean, the cultures around the world, when there's a military victory. Oh, I have to take this. I'm gonna put on mute.
Okay.
I have Steve.
Yeah, Harold.
Yeah, I was just thinking about maybe the differences. You know, we were talking about our experiences in the United States, and I was thinking maybe there's a kind of a very an opposition between um, exile versus immigration. And what I'm thinking of contrasting is with the ancient experience of the Jews. The Jews were exiled from the land of Israel, and let's say they went to off into Babylonia, and then I guess it was the Persian Cyrus, the Persian. He defeated, I think he defeated the Babylonians, and then he told the Jews of Babylonia, "You can go back to your original land." And they did. And I remember one thing I remember about the prophet Ezra,
Mhm.
who was a scribe also, is that Ezra was really quite xenophobic.
Mhm.
He wanted to reestablish the temple in Jerusalem, and he was very, very hard on, not marrying of uh, outside of the Jewish religion in order to maintain, because the whole identity, the whole Jewish civilization had essentially been threatened with destruction. And so they were trying to rebuild it back up. And there was the xenophobia. Contrast that with 150 years ago in this country when people from Europe came over, Italians, Irish, Poles, Jews, and so forth, and came over here. And I hear so frequently about people whose parents, once they got here, they were coming over here not because they were necessarily exiled, but in order to find a better life. And so they wanted to assimilate as quickly as possible. And the parents would speak English at home, and their kids would say, "Oh, our grandparents spoke Italian, but our parents never spoke Italian to us."
Mhm.
You know, yeah, they wanted to. I think the immigrants coming over here just wanted to assimilate as quickly as they could. So it's kind of an opposite, very contrasting pattern of behavior.
Yeah, well articulated. I think I mean, I'm not saying it's comparable, but you look at this rising Christian nationalism, right? Where let's get the Anglo-Saxon white people over and against darker skin and and let's deport those who because our identity as Saxon white men is being threatened, right? The old great replacement theory and all that stuff. So, yeah,
Um,
Don.
I was going to say, remember Ruth, the biblical figure of Ruth. She was a Moabite, she wasn't a Jew, and yet she ended up in the line of David and Jesus, which I think was extremely unusual for that time period.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know what's been saying, but based on what Don you're just saying, that's the big debate. It has been for a long time in Judaism. Is the lineage matriarchal or patriarchal? In the Bible, it's patriarchal, but then the rabbis changed it somewhere along the line.
You got to make it fit.
Yeah, and to this day, in Reform Judaism, it's either one. Reform Judaism considers you a Jew as long as your father or your mother was Jewish, but in Orthodox Judaism, it's the mother only.
Yeah.
We're a curious species, aren't we? We human beings. Hey, you guys, I've got to run to a place to meet somebody, but I suggest let's keep 14 on down. And then David also sent a text with Proverbs. And so David can we can bring him in to the end of this and we'll move ahead. Does that sound okay?
Right, but
Yes.
don't run, walk, because you might trip.
No
Okay,
tripping.
everybody. God bless. See you.
Right.
Bye. Okay.